Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Blights love warm, humid weather, and we've had lots of that. Today, we will talk about using fungicides to keep blight off your plants. Also, 6 master gardeners are opening up their personal gardens for tours. We're going to visit one of them. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mr. D. Thanks for joining me, Mr. D. All right. We're out in the Family Plot garden, and we're going to be talking about fungicides. And we're actually going to be mixing up some fungicides to control blight. So what do we need to start with that, Mr. D?
Well, first thing we have is a fungicide that we can use. Okay. We have a sprayer, and hopefully this is one that we've not used any herbicide in.
Hopefully so.
So if you've been spraying Roundup or 2,4-D or something like that around in the yard, do not use that sprayer.
That's right.
For one that you apply fungicide to tomatoes.
The labeling is very important.
Very important. I would take a Sharpie and write on there in big letters, fungicide or insecticide only. And then on your herbicide sprayer, write herbicide only, weed killers only, yes. Whatever terminology you want to use.
Okay.
But it's important to control blight on tomatoes. On these tomatoes, we don't see a lot of sign of blight right now. And that is a good time to start spraying because fungicides, as you know, are more preventative in nature.
Right.
During conditions when fungal diseases can become present, like we've been having the last few days, rainy conditions every once in a while, and high humidity, then it's important to have a protective coat of fungicide on those tomato plants.
Okay.
And tomatoes, if you don't do that with tomatoes, unfortunately, they will start browning up from the bottom, and in late summer, the production will decline, and then they'll just kind of die on you. If you control blight and the fungal diseases on tomatoes, you'll have tomatoes until the frost kills the plants, right. And that's what's supposed to happen.
Sure.
That's what's supposed to happen. But I'd say with this, no more. We've got what, 1, 2, 3 tomato plants. Let's mix. We'll only probably need a half a gallon or less than a half a gallon of material.
Okay.
And the way I start out is I put a little bit of water in the bottom of the sprayer here. Half or less than half than you're going to add. And we've got water here. Okay. So let's see here. We certainly aren't going to need this much. We've got this marked. The lower mark is a half gallon. Okay. And the higher mark is a gallon, and so we're only going to mix up a half gallon, so I'm going to pour only probably about a quarter of a jug here of water. And I need to be pretty sure that, and this spray tank has already been rinsed out. I know it's clean. Okay, that's about
it.
What we're going to need there.
Can you see it there?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Now, the rate on this particular fungicide that we're using varies from a half an ounce to I think 2 ounces per gallon. And now when we don't have a lot of disease pressure, we haven't had a real heavy rain in the past few hours, we'd go with a lower rate.
Okay.
And that would be about a tablespoon per gallon. Since we're mixing up a half gallon, that's a half a tablespoon. And we have here our trusty measuring spoons. Let's see if we got a half tablespoon. Wouldn't that be neat? Got a teaspoon, and there are 3 teaspoons to a tablespoon. We've got a quarter teaspoon, and a half teaspoon.
How about that?
So we will take the tablespoon one, and we're going to fill that about half full.
Okay.
To give us the rate that we need.
Okay. Now, what kind of fungicide are we going to be using today, Mr. D?
This is a copper fungicide. I know with the UT Red Book they recommend Bravo or chlorothalonil and Maneb to control early and late blight.
Right.
Copper is inorganic fungicide that is also labeled for use on tomatoes, and that's what we've got. So that's what we're going to use today.
All right.
With any pesticide, you probably need to shake it up real good before you use it. Make sure it's in solution.
Okay.
And
There you
that's
go.
on there good. Thought I was going to have to get you to take it off for me. Look at this. What a pretty blue color.
Oh, yeah,
That's copper. That's copper.
Right.
Thank you. So I'm going to put about a half a tablespoon. Did you say it's about a half?
I would say that.
It's smaller on the bottom than it is on
I
the
would say
top.
that.
Let me put a little bit, because like I said earlier, the rate is variable.
Yeah.
That looks pretty good right there.
Okay.
I'll let you cap that off for me.
Cap that.
I'm going to pour this in. Okay. I'm going to set this aside. And I'm going to go ahead and bring my level back up, or bring my level up to my mark, my half-gallon mark. Tell you what I'm going to do.
Rinse that out.
I'm going to rinse this out as I'm doing it. It's a good idea to triple rinse any of your mixing utensils. There's one. I may do more than that. That way, this fungicide goes where it needs to go. It goes on the plant, not down your drain. Let's got that in better shape.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to bring that up to the half-gallon mark.
Just
We're going to need a little bit more. Around where
You
I
see
can
it?
Is that about all right?
Yeah, I think he just about got it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good enough.
Just about got it and put that back in there.
Okay. Take this off. Put this back together. Why didn't I take it off like that?
I don't know. Just wanted to make it hard.
Yeah. Okay, snug it down good. I'm going to shake it up now. Real good. Sure, all
Sure,
these
everything's
fittings are
tight.
tight.
Yeah.
Because they'll let you know it'll leak on you if it's
sure
not. Okay, we have our solution ready.
Okay, well, Mr. D, why don't we go ahead and spray these
Let's
tomatoes?
go spray tomatoes.
All right.
All right, let's see what we've got here. Shaking it up again. Let's see what kind of pattern we've got. Don't want that
Yeah.
pattern.
It's a stream.
String. Oh, that looks good right there. Okay, the key to controlling fungal diseases is to get good coverage. And with blight, you definitely need to get the underside of the leaves.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that first, try to get the underside of the leaves. And then you spray to the point of runoff, basically just before the point of runoff,
Okay.
because if it runs off, you're contaminating the soil, and it's not, the fungicide doesn't do any good on the ground. It's got that pretty good.
Yeah.
Let me get this one. Again, I'm trying to get the underside of the leaves first.
Mr. D, looks like you've done that a time or two before,
I have
right?
done this a time or two before. You know, and it's something that needs to be done, like I said, like we said earlier, every 5 to 7 days, 7 to 10 days if you don't get any rain. If you get a rain on this thing, you know, half-inch rain, you probably need to do it again. Just pretend like you didn't put that application out there.
Okay.
Very important to follow the label on mixing these. It's important to observe the restrictions on harvest. We don't have to worry about that right now because we're not harvesting tomatoes. However, there is a green tomato right
Yeah,
there.
there's a couple.
If you like fried green tomatoes, that would probably work.
There's a couple.
That's
on
got these protected for a few days,
there. Okay.
provided the rain doesn't wash it off.
All right. I appreciate that demo, Mr. D.
Most welcome.
All right. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Miss Carol, thanks for inviting us out to your garden.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, and it's beautiful too. Now, where do you want to start? You want to talk about your gardenias first? Or?
Well, I have some hardy gardenias that actually were not hardy because they didn't make it through the winter. So you can see they're trying to come up.
They're trying.
And then I put in some Heavenly Scent gardenias, which is kind of a new cultivar, and I'm hoping it'll be real hardy for this area.
Okay. Now, what do you have over here on your left? I see your Laura petalums. Now, are they going to stay that size or what?
They are. They're kind of a mid-size Laura petalum, so they don't get real huge. And I just love the, you know, kind of the relaxed look of them, and you don't really have to prune them. Those are Darama, Darama Laura petalum.
Okay.
And I call this my hydrangea bed, obviously.
I wonder why.
And these are a native white dome hydrangea. So again, have a very free-form look to them. And then back in the back, those are Annabelles.
Okay, okay. So your intentions were to put your hydrangeas here in this area?
That's right.
Okay.
I wanted to have a hydrangea bed, and all of these hydrangea can take a little bit of the sun that they get.
Okay.
So
what do you get? Do you get afternoon sun or you get the morning sun?
we get west sun,
West
but
sun.
it doesn't start coming to us until about 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So, and then it disappears pretty quickly. So even though it's western, it isn't, you know, real harsh.
Okay, okay. And your variegated Japanese iris.
And the only
nice.
reason I got those is because of the leaves. Aren't they
Okay,
pretty?
yeah, I like the way they look. I do.
I tell you, I put these in several years ago, and everybody asked me about
I
them.
like those.
And I don't even know what color flower it is. I really don't, but I love the leaves.
Yeah, those look real nice. All right, now talk a little bit about your walkway here that we're on.
Well, we wanted to have a little walkway through these 2 beds, and my husband got several quotes, and he choked on the price of it. So he says, you know, we can do that ourselves. So
Oh boy.
we did. We put this walk down by ourselves, and it took us a couple of weekends.
Wow.
So it was a little bit of a challenge, but we made it through.
Y'all made it through? Okay. All right. You are so talented. How about that? That's pretty good. Now let's look at your walking stick, the Harry Lauder walking stick.
I know. I love that.
I like the growth.
I actually saw that at a garden tour I went on. There was a real tall one, and I just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I just had to have it.
Yeah, I love the growth. It has the, you know, contorted growth.
Yeah.
The weeping habit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's real nice.
it is.
So your husband likes drainage, right?
He does.
Is that why we have
he
that
does. We have, you know, we've got some drainage holes from that garden up there, and you know, we just have this pathway.
Okay.
And so he loves to create. He had a dry creek bed in our other house, and
Okay.
so he created this dry creek bed for us, and
It's pretty nice.
it works.
It works.
It works.
Okay. Like the big leaf golden ray. Looks real nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I had some, what were they, Huntington carpet rosemary all along here, that creeping rosemary. And the winter got them all.
Oh.
So these are just scrub rosemary bushes. I felt like, well, you know, I'm just going to plant these here. They're not that ground cover like stuff, but anyway, at least if they die, I can just rip them up. I just love rosemary,
I like the
don't
way it
you?
smells. I do.
Oh man,
And a lot of people cook with it, so yeah, it does smell good. But they're hanging on. They're doing okay.
they're doing okay.
Yeah, they're doing just fine. There's your Annabelles right there. Then you have your nice crepe myrtles up there.
Right.
Your roses. I mean, it's very nicely
Okay,
done.
that's the newest thing, but I
It's the
actually
newest thing,
I
okay.
actually had it's not new to me, but I actually had these in my other house. These are
Okay.
drift roses.
Okay.
They're the hottest thing right now. But they're my kind of rose because you don't have to do anything to them.
Don't have to worry about pruning
You don't
or
have
any of
to
that
prune
stuff.
them.
Right.
You don't have to nothing. And these have probably been in, well, these have been in 3 years.
Okay.
And look, you do want to see my red twig
Yeah, we do want to see that.
dogwood. Isn't that gorgeous?
That is nice.
Honestly, That's probably my favorite plant here.
Okay, okay.
I just love it. Again,
Now why is it your favorite plant?
well, years ago when I was taking a tour of the Missouri Botanic Garden.
Okay.
And the Kemper Center.
Okay.
And they were showing all the different dogwoods and what happens in the winter. And when I saw those red twigs, I've wanted one ever since. And I got that from Don Shadow. And, and look, it's just doing great.
Like
it
the
loves
leaves.
that spot.
All right, so this is one of the homes on through our Garden Gates tour.
That's right, and I'm real excited about it. I was actually supposed to be on the tour 4 years ago when I had a big tree fall in my backyard.
I remember
so
that.
we had to find another garden in a hurry. So I'm really glad to be on the tour this year.
Well, good, and we're going to hear a little bit more about the tour coming up. Okay, we have Miss Melissa Taylor. She's the current president of the Memphis Area Master Garden Association.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for being here. So, through our Garden Gates tour, what are the folks going to see?
Well, we're very excited. This is our 6th year for the tour, and the houses are all within a 6-mile radius. So it's going to be really easy for everybody to get around and see all of them. And that one, they could probably even do it in the morning or the afternoon, or take a leisurely day, have lunch in between. But a lot of different homes with a lot of different structures and plants, and there's a lot to learn out there from these homes.
Okay, now what is the time?
June the 6th, it's from 9 to 4, and you can find out more information on our website, memphisareamastergardeners.org.
All right, .org. Okay. Now I understand there might be a bike route.
Yes.
How about that? That's pretty exciting.
We're very excited, and we may have one published up on the website, but all the homes and the addresses are on our website, so you can also look at it yourself and maybe figure out your own bike route. But we're trying to work on something because they're so closely together. It goes from the west side of Overton Park to the east side of Audubon Park, so all the homes are within that 6-mile radius.
I think that's pretty neat. And I understand your home is going to be on the tour as well.
It is. It is going to be on there as well.
Okay. Are you excited about that?
I'm very excited. It's been a great learning opportunity for me
I'm sure.
to be on it. So
Sure. That's pretty neat. So we have the current president of the association. We have a past president of the association. And both homes are on the tour. All right. So thank you, Melissa. Appreciate you being here.
thank you, Chris.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. All right, Mr. D, here's our Q&A session. And we're going to start with our first viewer email. And we love these viewer emails, don't we?
We do.
All right, they're good. Here's the first one. Dear Family Plot, I want to know why my peony blooms have opened so big and beautiful, then dropped their petals within 24 hours. And this is from Miss Elizabeth. Well, Miss Elizabeth, when those buds start to swell, okay, if we get any rain, water gets inside of those buds and it slowly deteriorates the base of the flower, okay? The petals are attached to the stem. You get that coupled with rising temps, that leads to the demise of your flower.
So you don't want it to rain on your peonies.
Or water it, right.
or overhead water.
Or overhead water.
Right.
So yeah, that will slowly deteriorate those flowers. So what happens is, which she's just described, so you get a flower that opens, but it quickly falls apart.
Yeah.
And I learned that from Miss Ellen LeBlanc, who actually grew peonies for a living. So that's what happened, Miss Elizabeth. And she did tell me, Miss Ellen told me that the best time to actually harvest those flowers is between April the 20th and May to 5th.
Before it rains.
That's your max. Before it rains,
Before it
right?
rains.
But that is your max, Miss Elizabeth. So that's why it fell apart. Again, you get water in those buds, it just slowly deteriorates the flower. So it opens up, then falls apart.
I wonder, I hope it has time to pollinate. Maybe so, maybe no. Huh?
Maybe so, maybe no.
Yeah.
Okay. And there you have it, Miss Elizabeth. So here's our next question. Laura writes, Dear Chris, I do believe the neighbor's wisteria means to creep its way into my home, take all my possessions, and strangle me as I sleep. No matter how many times I pull the vines that root in my own yard, those that originate on the other side of the fence continue to slither into my bushes. I swear that plant grows a foot a day. Short of sneaking around after dark with a bottle of Roundup, is there any way to discourage this wisteria vine from crossing the property line? Signed, sleeping with one eye open. I like that. All right, Ms. Laura, how about that? We don't want this to strangle you to death. Mr. D, can we help Ms. Laura out?
You know, the only thing, Ms. Laura, I don't think you have to worry about, I don't think that they will take your possessions. Everything else, I think you need to worry about.
Right.
Everything else that you're worried about, you need to worry about. You know, I guess this is a Chinese or Japanese wisteria.
It's probably a Chinese wisteria. Very invasive.
Very, very invasive. It's a beautiful plant, has a beautiful bloom, but it is very, very invasive. And you know, I've looked. There are things that will kill it. And if the whole plant was on your yard, we could probably, I can probably go ahead and give you some ideas of things that will kill it. But if it's popping up in your yard, in my opinion, it's on your property. At the least, you can prune it, you know, cut it back. But I mean, you'll work yourself to death doing that. You'd almost have to do that daily, or at least once a week.
Yeah, definitely weekly, starting in the spring
to go in there
to the fall.
And it's going to be a, you know, forever. I mean, you've got to do it forever as long as that plant is across the road. I wonder, one thing I wonder about, I've not seen this, hadn't been able to see anything written about it, about digging a trench. You know, going in there with a trench digger and digging a trench like
you would do bamboo, almost, right?
Well, yeah, but you know, maybe 2 feet deep, a foot deep, and then pour it with concrete, or put steel down, and you know, that might, because I know that most feeder roots tend to prefer the topsoil, and that might discourage it. If you do that, let us know how it works out. I know that's a pretty expensive little proposition too. But short of that, I mean, you can use you can cut it off, and then you can paint the cuts with 2,4-D or triclopyr, or there's 2 or 3 different products, your glyphosate, and that should translocate back to the mother plant. Whether that will be enough to kill the plant across the yard, I don't know. But technically, you're applying that pesticide on your property, on the plants that are growing in your yard, and I think you can do that.
Okay.
I think you can do that, and I probably would.
Would you do that?
I would. You better believe I would, because it's just, you know, it's so invasive. I mean, it'll kill the trees if you let it go. It will climb trees in your yard. It will strangle those trees. It'll actually wrap around them and girdle the tree.
I've seen it done.
Climb up your house. I don't
know about this by experience.
I do know this by experience. I do know this by experience. You're talking to somebody that actually planted a wisteria and watched it slowly take over my backyard. You know, this was many, many years ago when I was younger and dumber. That's a tough situation. It's really a tough situation.
Yeah, we don't want you sneaking around after dark.
Have you thought about selling your house? You know, that may be
option, right? Move.
Yeah, that may be the simplest option.
All right, Ms. Laura. Well, we gave you a lot of choices there, so I hope you can use one of those, and hopefully you can sleep peacefully at night after that. All right, here's our next question. Should I use a sealant when pruning trees in my yard? Are you already shaking your head no?
No, I don't think you should. And I'm going back to some of the things we learned back after we saw a lot of hurricane damage in pecan trees down on the Gulf Coast. You know, you'd have limbs that broke, and you prune them off and make clean cuts. And we found that research has proven that trees put a natural barrier against the damaged tissue and healthy tissue. They do that on their own. If you use a sealant, sometimes the sealants, especially if they contain tar and those kind of things, actually will hold moisture and cause fungal diseases to develop in some of the rots and some of them, you know, mushrooms and things like that can be a problem. So the answer to that question is simple. You know, no, you do not need a sealant.
Okay. I guess, was that something they used to do back in the day or something? 'Cause I've heard that a time or two.
Well, they're on the market, and probably was recommended at one time. But, you know, after you use things a while, you have a chance to really look at them and you learn more about them.
Okay. All right, that's all we have time, Mr. D. Thanks.
Yep.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.